We celebrate the harvest and check in with growers across the state for a closer look at the corn crop. Hear what Governor Jim Pillen says about nitrate concerns and how much he wants to cut taxes. Later, helping those with disabilities stay on the farm and ranch. And an issue off the farm the growers say affects young families. It's time to grow. Most Nebraska farmers enjoying their Thanksgiving weekend knowing the corn crop is in the bin. More than 95% of corn has now been picked, but quality varies.
You know, a lot of guys they're kind of upset. You know, the yield wasn't there. I think it wasn't the first hot spell in August. It was the second one that really got guys, and the guys that shut the wells off early, it really dinged everyone in the end.
And not to minimize the pain felt for our farmers that are in severe drought, because there really were some issues. But it's a testament to modern agriculture and precision agriculture, because we have irrigation, because we have new seed varieties and genetics and timely applications of nutrients when we need them. You know, our crops are actually a pretty good average yield for corn and soybeans. When you think that this drought is severe as it was in the 1930s, and we're still bringing in most places, an above average crop and yield, that's amazing.
You know, our corn harvest was very good, considering we had hail on about every acre that we had. Some was more severe than others, but all in all, in my neighborhood, we've had decent yields. There was some neighborhoods where they were just completely wiped out and there was nothing to harvest, but we were pretty fortunate.
Governor Jim Pillen has faced criticism about how his hog operations may have contributed to high nitrates, an issue he says the state is working on.
This group is pretty unanimous.
Governor Jim Pillen addresses a friendly crowd, a group focused on growing the state through livestock.
That I defend agriculture against the far radical extremes.
The first farmer as governor in a century, Pillen made his mark as a hog farmer. The Flatwater Free Press reports 16 hog barns associated with Pillen have contributed to high nitrates, above the level considered safe to drink. When asked about that in September, Pillen dismissed the reporting, saying the author was from communist China, remarks some consider racist. We asked Pillen about nitrates on his property. He didn't talk about his own farms, but did say he just came from a meeting with the State Department of Environment.
We're working very, very hard on making sure that we have a good handle on the history of the data across the entire state, and making sure we can focus on assuring all Nebraskans that we're going to improve. We're going to make sure none of our water gets sold by anybody ever forever. We're going to make sure that we can innovate and make sure that we utilize our water and protect that old aquifer.
University of Nebraska archives show farmers were told anhydrous ammonia was cheap and effective.
Where a lot of anhydrous ammonia was used, where you flood irrigated in the Platte Valley in sandy soils, and it went straight down.
A growing body of scientific knowledge now links high nitrates in groundwater to cancer and other health threats. Farmers in some areas have faced nitrogen fertilizer restrictions for decades. Technology now allows for more precise applications, and some growers use sensors to apply just as much as the crop needs.
We'll learn, and best practices have improved dramatically, but we've got science and technology on our side.
And this governor wants to expand agriculture, feeding corn and soybeans to more animals.
What your definition of value-added agriculture? Mine is livestock, and we ain't seen nothing yet. And technicians find the fingerprints of nitrate contamination. The Lower Loop NRD based in Ord collected samples from 20 irrigation wells and 2 domestic wells in Wheeler County during summer 2022. They looked at the chemical makeup. This type of analysis is described as fingerprinting, a method of tracing sources of contaminants. They can see if it came from organic sources like animal waste or inorganic sources like commercial fertilizer. In addition, they can measure ammonia, total organic carbon, and chloride concentration as potential indicators of livestock manure
manure that released organic nitrogen to groundwater. The analysis shows a mix of organic and inorganic sources. The majority of wells are impacted strictly by commercial fertilizer. 3 wells saw just organic sources. They're going to continue their work to investigate more factors. And back to Governor Jim Pillen telling us he wants to cut taxes in a big way. Pillen says property taxes, in his words, are out of whack. He says it affects those who don't own property. When it comes to how much of a reduction he's pushing for on ag land, he says he would like to make a major cut.
We have to get 20 to 25%. So this 2023, the state of Nebraska invested just over $5 billion, $23 million. So yeah, we have to get that down in that 3.5 to 3.7 range. And then we have to be able to stop government growth and have a cap tied with it.
Pillen told this group he favors a hard cap no matter how valuations go up. He says levies must go down, and he also said the state needs to reconsider some sales tax exemptions. And as we visit with the president of the Nebraska corn growers, there's an issue off the farm that's a growing concern. Well, Chris, something people may not think about, but farmers, you've got families, you've got other considerations, things like housing or even childcare. Some of those things become issues sometimes as well, don't they?
Yep, daycare in central Nebraska it's pretty bad. In our area, we've had 5 or 6 that have closed in the past couple months. The regulations trying to get licensed, they're taking forever. We heard of a case that started in March, and they still don't have a license for daycare. These families can't stay home and take care of their kids. They got to send them somewhere. But at times, it comes with a price. And those prices are getting heavier and heavier every day.
And is that something that you hear even from egg producers, from farmers, from corn growers out there who are trying to balance family life with situations like that?
Yep, correct. It's just an ongoing concern. And it's not just only Nebraska. It's the entire U.S. that's struggling with daycare right now.
And it's not just daycare, unfortunately. I mean, we're seeing shortages in the healthcare industry, and we're dealing with shortages in a lot of other places. And I mean, do you see some of those kinds of things affecting, rural type communities?
Yep, I do. You're going to see smaller businesses having to close down to stay home with their children, or they just can't afford it because they can't get employees.
So if state and federal people are able to do things that make some of those things easier to happen in rural communities, those would be the kinds of things you would generally support.
Absolutely. We would love to support that.
Yeah, well, very good. Chris, appreciate you visiting with us.
Absolutely, anytime.
Later, why a farmer who's a state senator wants to save a weather network. Up next, bringing folks back to the farm and ranch after injury.
You have a passion for capturing the beauty of Mother Nature? We want to see your best weather photos and videos. Chime in at nebraska.tv/chime in.
Farming is no doubt a physical job, but one program is helping producers continue to do it after an illness or injury. Nancy is joining us now from Nebraska Extension to talk all about it. Thank you for joining us. Tell us what AgriBility does for farmers.
AgriBility serves Nebraska farmers and ranchers experiencing any kind of an illness or injury that limits their ability to perform routine tasks. We recommend creative solutions to continue working safely on the farm or ranch, and we're hoping that we provide hope by preserving an agriculture way of life.
And so what are some of the disabling conditions you work with?
We work with all kinds of disabling conditions, anything from a spinal injury where a person might be a paraplegic to someone who has arthritis that just can't move quite as easily as they used to. There's back impairments, brain injuries, hearing impairments, all kinds of injuries and illnesses. We help people stay on the farm doing what they love.
And so then how do you do that and make sure they can still do that job they love?
We work with Nebraska Easter Seals, and they have what they call rehabilitation specialists that go out to the farm and do an assessment on the farm or ranch with the farmer or rancher to see what they need to do. They can modify the farm and ranch tasks. They might adapt equipment. They might increase farmstead accessibility. They can educate them on injury prevention. Secondary injuries are big sometimes. It depends on what you're doing, because if you're compensating, say you've got a injured shoulder on one side, you might end up injuring the shoulder on the other side because you're compensating. And so they provide that. We do not provide funding or equipment, but we do help farmers and ranchers find potential funding sources for the equipment they might need.
And this is all thanks to a federal grant. You mentioned your partnership. How does that all work?
Agribility is a NEFA-funded, USDA NEFA-funded grant. And to get this grant, you have to have a land-grant university and a nonprofit disability organization. In Nebraska, we have the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Extension and Easter Seals Nebraska are the two that work together to offer this program. And we've been around since 1995, so we've been around a long time.
And I'm sure people appreciate it. If you need assistance, who do you reach out to?
They can get on our website for Nebraska farmers and ranchers. You go to agribility.unl.edu. If you want more information about the program nationwide, it's agribility.org. And you just give us a call or get on the website. The phone number and contact information is on that website. And we get the process going for you.
It's just amazing. I know many people might think it's a career ender, so you can help them out sometimes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And results of our poll question, we wanted to know what protein was the main course of your Thanksgiving meal. The traditional turkey tops the list for many, but this is a beef state, and a lot of you must have had prime rib steak or maybe brisket on the dinner table. Ham, pork comes in third, and chicken can wait for another day. We've seen some rain, and we'll look at the drought monitor in our Grow Weather Outlook next.
We're gearing up for basketball season with Sports Extra. Starting Friday, December 1st on NTV News at 10. Sports Extra, our team covering your team.
Well, the latest drought monitor that was released this past week, and of course still have pretty dry conditions across the Central Plains. Get a closer look now at the state of Kansas, which looks relatively similar compared to last week. No drought, stands at roughly 10%, mainly across parts of extreme southern and western Kansas. Abnormally dry includes the rest of the state at about 90%. Both of no drought and abnormally dry categories, about a 1.5% reduction from that drought monitor from last week. Otherwise, the rest of it looks pretty similar. 68.5% of the state still in moderate drought, 42 2/3% in severe drought now, which is about the same as last week. Extreme drought still at about 7.63%, which is the same as last week. And still no exceptional drought across the state of Kansas, which is always a good thing to see. Moving up towards Nebraska now, no drought stands at roughly 58 2/3%, which is roughly about the same compared to last week. Abnormally dry sits at about 41 1/3%, also about the same as last week. And most of these categories are the same. Moderate drought still stands about 27%. Severe drought, roughly 20.5%. Extreme drought at about 11%. The one improvement we had in Nebraska this last week, exceptional drought, now at about 3.71%, was at 4.65% compared to last week. So a nice little improvement there. Gets some parts of extreme southern Nebraska out of that exceptional drought. Always a good thing to see there. Otherwise, temperatures for the month of December still looking pretty average for all of Kansas and all of Nebraska as well. As we look at precipitation totals for the month of December, looking still at above average totals for really much of Nebraska, excluding parts of the Panhandle and much of Kansas as well, excluding parts of southeast Kansas too. So good to see that still in the forecast here. Next 3 months, looking at average temperatures for a good portion of us, a little above average in parts of extreme northeast Kansas, along with parts of northern and eastern Nebraska. Near normal temperatures are expected for a good portion of southwestern Kansas and extreme southwest Nebraska. In the next 3 months, precipitation outlook looking still at slightly above average precipitation totals, excluding parts of extreme northeast Kansas as well as parts of extreme northern and eastern Nebraska. Now looking at your Grow Almanac here for the week ahead, normally we see a high right around 45 this time of year. Normally we see a low about 23, and week ahead looking pretty close to those marks. 46 is the average high and 22 is the average low. And looking at the Grow week ahead here, starting off the week on the little chilly side, 39 for a high on Monday. Get warmer towards the middle part of the week. maybe tracking a system towards the tail end of next week, although still a little bit of uncertainty with that. But pretty dry for the most part this next week. Your girl proverb for the week: there will be as many snowstorms during the season as there are days remaining in the month after the time of the first snow. Of course, we had that snow over the weekend, and looks like right now maybe a few more days and a few more snows to go. Well, that is a check of your Grow weather forecast for this week. Stay tuned next week when once again it'll be time to grow.
We've had some rain, but farmers in Indiana saw snow early in the harvest season. Here's more.
Now that we're in November and the first waves of colder air have arrived, it's a busy time for farmers working to collect crops before winter sets in.
We have a lot of things in motion. You know, communication's a big part. And then obviously this year's dealing with the mud. It's been kind of a struggle, but we're getting through it.
The mud and scattered pools of water are all that remain of this week's snowfall. While snow in October isn't uncommon here, it makes farming more difficult.
We didn't have to stop for it until it got later in the night. We got about 3 inches right here.
Some older farm equipment can't operate in snow at all. Newer equipment can, but still has its limitations. Snow won't allow the crops to feed into the machines correctly, and too much snow plugs the separating system and it won't clean the grain like it should. So, on Wednesday, Huntsberger delayed harvesting by a few hours.
I want to say by 11 o'clock noon we were running again. Most of the snow had melted off by that time.
Mike Mason says they still have several weeks of early mornings and late nights left. He's hoping the weather cooperates for the rest of the season.
Ideally, second, third week of November is where we would like to be. I mean, I think we'll be done before Thanksgiving. Really hoping, especially if the weather stays like this for us.
Good weather data is vital for agriculture. Up next, what one state senator wants to do about it.
Ag Outlook on NTV's Grow is driven by Cornhusker Toyota Honda, home of the Toyota Tacoma and Tundra trucks, and Nebraska's only dual Toyota Honda dealer.
Visiting with Senator Myron Dorn of Adams, and there's an issue that's kind of come to the forefront that you've done a lot of work on, this weather network. Tell people about that.
That'd be the Messinet system. In Nebraska, we at one time were the early forerunner of the Messinet system. We had over 90 systems. The last couple of years, we've gone down to now 57. Brought a bill last year for some funding. Realized that we needed more work on, I call it the structure, and making sure everything's proper and what we really intend to do with it, which is accurate, reliable data, weather data at so many spots across Nebraska. Hope to maybe have in the 150 neighborhood of weather stations, and then now we're working on some of the funding and getting down what we all would like to have these systems do. The people I've been visiting with say that this will be available for anybody. It will be available for the public to be able to log on to those things, key into them, and get any of that information.
Now, this is something that the university has maintained. Is it just something that just the dollars weren't there, or they just didn't prioritize, or what happened there?
Well, several things. One is maintenance. They have technology with them. So as you go through the years, that technology might get hit by lightning, or does it get replaced or updated, or all those things. This also is going to be a little bit, I call it a scale up in model of those weather systems, hoping to have one that will also take like a soil sample every day or every so often and all those type of things. So university had been having this program as budget squeezes came about. Not enough funding kept going towards this. We kept losing stations. The people that brought me the bill knew that we needed this in Nebraska, how critical it is, especially in outstate Nebraska, to have reliable weather, the same weather every so many miles, maybe every 15 or 20 miles in any direction, to have that and to be able to get and collect that data and access the data.
I mean, certainly there are other sources of weather information, but having a consistent network, especially in rural areas, and we've seen the wildfires in recent years, things like that. Do you see applications in addressing some of those kinds of issues?
Yes, the National Forest Service they have become involved or are very interested in this as we, particularly out west, have more forest fires or more wildfires across the state of Nebraska. We've seen how they have come about the last few years. Just the other day, I think a week ago or whatever, we had one or two of them again. And it's critical to have that so that you can know know at that station, like 20 miles that direction, what the wind speed is, and then you can calculate how long before it's here, and those types of things. Very useful.
So you've got kind of a group of people, a working group.
Yes.
You've been talking, and you're hopeful that maybe you can come together with something that can go before the legislature.
The university here in the middle of the summer came up, or they found a new person in charge of the Messinet system, so we have that now. The university been working with them, some people there, about how to bring this project forward, and then now hopefully this next year we'll bring some, ask for some funding so that we can get this thing up to where we need it in Nebraska.
And as we wrap up this Thanksgiving weekend, I want to say thanks to all of you who tune in and everybody involved in Nebraska agriculture, whether you're on the farm or ranch or in jobs supporting it in town. It's the reason we do what we do, and we'll see you back here next time as we see how agriculture makes Nebraska grow.
NTV's Grow is brought to you by Aurora Cooperative. Tougher together, Aurora and you.